After discussion of two parts, we are going to discuss third part in internal security marathon, that is the money, the frontier, and the insurgency. In this part, we are going to discuss four chapters, that is 8th to 11th chapter: terror financing and organized crime, border management, maritime and coastal security, left wing extremism. In this, we are going to discuss the first chapter is chapter number 8, that is financing, laundering, organized crime, organized crime nexus. So in this, we are going to discuss the first and foremost thing, that is one circulatory system. What is the one circulatory system? A rule for this chapter before anything else I am going to tell you: terror financing, money laundering, and organized crime are not three topics. They are one circulatory system. Why? Crime generates the money, laundering cleans and moves it, and terrorism spends it. So you have to prepare them separately, and you will write three thin answers. Prepare them as one system, and you can answer every question this head has ever produced. That is funding sources in 2017 and 2023, money laundering in 2013 and 2021, the organized crime nexus in 2022, narco terrorism in 2018 and 2024. And the record matters here: 2013, 17, 18, 21, 22, 23, and 24. 7 questions in 12 years, with a rising emphasis on the crime terror nexus, terror funding, and narco terrorism. And what is the fresh angle here? Virtual assets has never been asked till now. So money is terrorism's oxygen. This chapter is about cutting off the air. So what is the source bus map here? The 2017 and 2023 PYQs both demand the sources of terror funding. So we are going to map them in two generations. The traditional channels like state sponsorship from across the border, hawala, trust-based broker networks that transfer value outside conventional banking channels through offsetting settlements, then counterfeit currency, a dedicated scene ahead for the discussion, then extortion and taxation in conflict theaters, like the left wing extremism economy of chapter 11 we are going to discuss, then drug trafficking, a dedicated scene ahead, and gold and commodity smuggling, trade based money laundering, like over and under invoicing that hides value in cargo manifests, then shell companies and charitable fronts, non-profit entities misused as conduits by bad actors, that is under charitable fronts. These are all traditional channels. These are all traditional channels. So under traditional channels, state sponsorship across the border, hawala, counterfeit currency, extortion and taxation in conflict zones, drug trafficking, gold and commodity smuggling, trade based laundering, and shell companies. These are all under traditional channels. But what are the emerging channels? The emerging channels are cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency, and virtual digital assets, peer to peer transfer platforms, crowdfunding, micro donations aggregated across borders, and online gaming platforms as value transfer rails, and mule account networks. The same infrastructure chapter 7 showed you in fraud available to may any paying customer, including terror. So terror financing has diverged from state sponsorship and hawala into a portfolio like crypto, crowdfunding, gaming rails, and mule networks. Smaller per transaction, faster per transfer, and far harder per investigation. So these are the emerging channels for, for, for funding. And then we are moving to next scene, that is the organized crime terrorism nexus. Organized crime terrorism nexus. The 2022 PYQ asked for types of organized crime and a linkage with terrorism. So this solves both. What are the types? One sweep here, that is drug trafficking, arms trafficking, human trafficking, extortion and contract violence, counterfeiting, smuggling networks, cyber enabled financial crime, and money laundering as the service industry to all of them. Now, all the nexus. Now, the nexus and give it is its logic, not just as a list. But at the national level, shared infrastructure, the CAM smuggling routes, corrupt facilitators, hawala channels, and safe houses serve both. Terror gaps taxing criminal economies in their areas, and criminals supplying weapons, documents, and logistics. At the transnational level, drugs for arms, exchange across borders, laundering chains that wash both mafia and militant money, and the convergence phenomenon like criminal groups adopting ideology for protection, terror groups adopting crime for revenue until the distinction blurs. So, what is the analytical thing here? Like crime and terror are drawn together because each has what the other needs. Crime and terror. Crime has money and logistics, terror has territory, muscle, and cause. So that is why these crime terror nexus. So, what is narco terrorism? The drug engine. The 2024 PYQ asked it by name, that is narco terrorism, and 2018 asked its linkages. The geography first we are going to discuss, that is India sits between the world's two great illicit opium geographies, that is the golden crescent to the west and the golden triangle to the east. So proximity is destiny. The western routes feed Punjab and beyond, increasingly by drone. As chapter 9 we will go into the details. The eastern routes run through the Myanmar frontier. You are going to study in chapter 12. The linkage chain comes to the linkage chain from the 28 PYQ, still exact. Drug profits by guns, gun running, drug money needs cleaning, so laundering, drug routes carry people, so human trafficking, and every link funds the networks, the terror taps for revenue and logistics. So why narco terrorism is doubles corrosive? It finances violence at one end and destroys the youth it addicts at the other. A security threat and a social catastrophe traveling in the same consignment. So that is why narco terrorism is doubly corrosive. What are the countermeasures? How compromised? How compressed? Intelligence-led interdiction, intelligence-led interdiction at borders and ports, financial investigation of every major seizure, follow the money, not just the pocket, coordination among NCB, DRI, customs, state police, and financial intelligence, international cooperation along the routes, and demand side de addiction because supply chases demand. So these are countermeasures is need of the hour. And then we are moving to next thing, that is next scene, fake currency, the monetary weapon. What is fake currency and why fake currency is using? Counterfeit currency deserves its own scene. That is why, because the law itself treats it as more than a monetary offense. Please recall chapter 1's anchor. UAP's definition of a terrorist act expressly includes demanding India's monetary stability through high quality counterfeit currency. Counterfeiting is statutorily recognized as an instrument of terrorism. Why it serves the adversary? Why? It finances terror operations directly. It pays smuggling networks to their own product. It erodes confidence in the currency, and it burdens the cash dependent poor who can least afford a worthless note. Worthless note. What are enablers? Advanced printing technology replicating security features, porous borders and criminal transit routes, and cash intensive informal markets where notes changes have had where notes change hands unexamined. These are all enablers, like advanced printing technology replicating security features, then porous borders and criminal transit routes, and cash intensive informal markets where notes change hands unexamined. These are all these are all enablers. What is the response structure? What is the response architecture? With the names here, FCORD. What is FCORD? The FICN Coordination Center in MHA. What is MHA? Ministry of Home Affairs. Sharing intelligence across central and state agencies. The TFFC cell, Terror Funding and Fake Currency Cell, under the NIA for focused investigation. An India Bangladesh MOU on counterfeit currency with training for Nepal and Bangladesh police, currency security upgrades, and the strategic principle from your current material I am going to tell you. Target the organized networks, not only the retail carriers. Arresting the man with 10 notes while the press runs untouched is theater, not enforcement. So this is the response architecture as far as fake currency is concerned. And what is the virtual assets? Next scene, that is, what is virtual assets? The frontier problem. The fresh angle here is the virtual assets. The one the PYQ list has never tested. Why do cryptocurrency and virtual digital assets complicate enforcement? Why? Why? Eight reasons. Eight reasons are there. You have to learn at least five minimum. Pseudonymity. What is pseudonymity? Addresses, not names. Borderless transfer at internet speed. Decentralized protocols with no single operator to summon, unlike centralized exchanges, which can be regulated. Self-hosted wallets beyond any intermediaries reach. Mixers, tumblers, and privacy coins service in a need to break the money trail. Jurisdictional arbitrage. Operations parked where regulation is weakest. The difficulty of linking wallets to beneficial owners, and conversion chains, value hopping across tokens and exchanges until the origin dissolves. So these are all the roots and reasons for enforcement struggle for virtual assets, like pseudonymity, borderless transfer, decentralized, no operator to summon, self-hosted wallets, mixer tumblers, jurisdictional arbitrage, wallet to beneficial owner linkage, conversion chain across tokens. So these are all the things. So the same ledger that hides the criminal is permanent and public. So with capability and cooperation, blockchain analysis can sometimes trace what cash never could. So the problem is not the crypto cannot be followed. It is that following it demands skills, tools, and treaties that enforcement is still building. So these are in the need for countering this thing. So virtual assets have transformed the methods, but not the objectives of terror financing. The money still buys the same guns. It simply travels through rails. The loss was not the law was not built to watch. So what is money laundering? The next scene. And the state's counter architecture is what? Money laundering, placement, layering, integration. Dirty money enters the system, moves until its origin is obscured, and returns wearing a clean face. The 2021 PYQ asked regarding this emerging technologies and globalization. We are already built in crypto rails, gaming platforms, TBML across global supply chains, and instant cross-border payments outrunning paper era procedures. So now the counter architecture comes to the counter architecture. We are going to discuss first and foremost domestic. We are dealing in layers. First and foremost, policy and coordination. The CFT cell in MHA, terror financing policy, FATF coordination, and freezing and seizure powers under Section 51A of UAPA. Attachment of proceeds operates separately under PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. This is under the policy. Then what is under next? Investigation. What is investigation? NIA with its TFFC cell under the dedicated left wing extremism financing vertical from chapter 11 we are going to discuss. The enforcement directorate prosecuting laundering under PMLA with attachment of proceeds of crime, and financial intelligence flowing through FIU to IND to every investigation agency. How seizing? The four frameworks from the record designations under UN Security Council resolutions, proscriptions and seizures under UAPA, terror financing investigations by NIA and state police, and anti-money laundering cases with terror predicates by the ED. So these are all under the seizure formality. So comes to the data anchor part. NIA 657 cases according to MHA annual report 2024-2025, 521 charge sheeted, 150 convictions in 157 conclude trials. The terror financing cases sit inside this docket, but read the figure precisely. It is the aggregate conviction rate across all NIA cases, not a financing specific one. These things. What it established is that India's central terror investigation machinery has become prosecution grade. Whether financing cases convert at the rate is a separate question. We are going to discuss, and scene 9 answers it honestly. So make that distinction in the hall, and you have written a sentence most candidates will not. So then we are moving to next scene, that is FATF, the global layer. The international half we are going to discuss, and a 2023 BYQ already lives here. FATF in four working parts: the intergovernmental standard setter for anti-money laundering, counter terror financing and proliferation financing. Its 40 recommendations guide national systems, mutual elevations that assess effectiveness, not merely laws on paper, and the gray and black lists whose reputational and financial consequences make compliance a matter of national interest. FATF's current focus areas track this chapter exactly, like virtual assets, crowdfunding, beneficial ownership, terror financing, etc. Comes to the India position, both notes. Honestly, we are going to tell you this thing. The credit in the 2023-24 mutual evaluation, FATF assessed India's understanding of current and emerging terror financing threats and risks favorably, and found investigations and prosecutions broadly in line with risks identified. So the vigilance part, what is the vigilance part here? After Pahalgam, FATF intensified scrutiny of counter-terror financing efforts, flagging crypto misuse, crowdfunding and digital launderings as emerging risks, praised for the framework. What is the framework? Pressure on the frontier, present both, and your answer is balanced by construction. So what we have to do is add the diplomatic instrument. The no money for terror conference process, India hosting the 2022 New Delhi edition, building exactly the international coordination this borderless problem demands. That is the 2023 PYQ pre-answered. So India's current FATF follow-up. What is the follow-up we are going to do? These are all the things we are going to do. And next scene is way forward. What is way forward? The way forward is organize it as follow: freeze, fix, federate. What is follow? What is follow? Financial investigation as the default companion to every terror and major crime case. Blockchain analytics capability, beneficial ownership transparency, so shell companies to stop being masks. So comes under follow: investigation by default, blockchain analytics we have to use, beneficial ownership, and next one freeze, speed 51A and PLMA attachment, working at the tempo money moves, mule account detection at the banking layer, borrowing chapter 7's machinery here, and then comes to fix, regulate virtual asset, service providers to FATF standards, plug the gaming crowdfunding and P2P rails, strengthen NGO sector transparency without strangling genuine charity. Say the caveat, FATF itself insists on it. And next one, that is moving to federate, center state investigations coordination and international evidence sharing along the money's route, because the trial always crosses at least one border. So what is the newest channel? Bharat Poll, launched January 2025, connecting Indian agencies to 195 countries and 19 categories of Interpol database for fugitive and asset tracing. So the honest paragraph is: enforcement capability lags the technology it chases. Enforcement capability lags the technology it chases. Conviction in pure financing cases remain hard because money is quieter than guns. And over broad crackdowns on NGOs and informal remittances the poor depend on can hurt the innocent economy more than the guilty network. So precision again is the discipline here. So virtual assets have transformed the methods but not the objectives of terror financing. So the money still buys the same guns I discussed earlier. It simply travels through rails the law was not built to watch. So we are going to next scene, that is PYQ corner. In 2024 asked, explain how narco-terrorism has emerged as serious threat across the country. Suggest suitable measures to counter narco-terrorism. 10 marker question. In 2023 asked, give the major sources of terror funding in India and efforts being made to curtail these sources. In the light of this, also discuss the aim of the aim and objective of the no money for terror conference recently held at New Delhi in November 2022. This question asked in 50 marker, 250 words, and again 2022 asked one question that is discuss the types of organized crime, describe the linkages between terrorists and organized crime that exists at national and transnational levels. This question asked in 10 marks, 150 words. In 2021 asked discuss how emerging technologies and globalization contribute to money laundering, elaborate measures tackle the problem of money laundering both national and international levels. In 2018 asked India's proximity to two of the world's biggest illicit opium growing states has enhanced her internal security concerns, explain the linkages between the drug trafficking and other illicit activities such as gun running, money laundering, and human trafficking. What countermeasures should be taken to prevent the same? This question asked in 2018, 15 marker question. And money laundering poses a serious security threat to a country's economic sovereignty. What is its significance for India and what steps are required to be taken to control this menace? This question asked in 2013 for 10 marker. So under in 2017 question asked sources of terrorist funding as the second limb of terrorism question printed in full in chapter 1. So the record here is 2013, 17, 18, 21, 22, 23, 24, 7 questions in 12 years. A team UPSC actively maintains with virtual assets as the unasked variant in this particular financing, laundering, and organized crime chapter. So the probable question for mains 2026 is virtual assets have transformed the methods but not the objectives of terror financing and money laundering. Examine the emerging challenges and evaluate the adequacy of India's counter financing framework. So this is the probable question we are providing. Then how to write an answer for this? This is the circulatory frame. So first and foremost, what we have to do is frame the system. Crime ends, laundering moves, terror spends. This is one circulation. Crime ends, laundering moves, terror spends. Then map the sources in two generations. First one traditional, second one virtual. Then analyze one nexus in depth as the question demands. Organized crime, narco terrorism, or FICN, that is counterfeit currency, with its a statutory hook. And then present the architecture in layers like CFT cell, 51A, NIA TFFC, EDPMLA, and four seizure frameworks with the NIA conviction anchor. Then move to global. FATF's FATF's credit and vigilance balance, then no money for terror, then close with the follow, freeze, fix, federate. These four. So these are the things you have to use for this question in an order. So this is the structure of answer for this probable question. So we are moving to next chapter, that is chapter number 8, cut the money and the machine that runs on its stalls. So what is the chapter number 8 we are going to discuss? This is the chapter number 8. We are moving to next chapter, that is chapter number 9, border management, securing the land frontier. What is border management? Why securing the land frontier? We are discussing in this particular chapter. This is the heaviest head in this paper. Why? A statistical fact about your syllabus before we begin. In the PYQ set, we analyzed 13 years of papers. 13 years of papers, the single heaviest cluster. 17 questions in 13 years. 17 questions sits under one head, that is border management and its linkages with organized crime and terrorism. China and Pakistan borders with BADP and BIM 2024, then drone ferrying arms and drugs 2023, Myanmar, Bangladesh and Pakistan borders with the forces guarding them 2020 question, then terrain and strategy 2016 question, illegal migration 2014 question, porous borders 2013 question. UPSC returns here constantly because the border is where every other chapter begins. The infiltrator of chapter 2, the insurgent camps of chapter 12, the drug consignments of chapter 8, all of them cross a line this chapter is about holding. That is chapter 9 is border management. The frontier in numbers and who holds it. This is the scene number 2 in the chapter 9. So, what we are going to discuss in this, we are going to discuss and we are going to give you one clarification for precision. The stated total includes the 106-kilometer India-Afghanistan boundary, which runs through territory presently under Pakistan's illegal occupation. Who holds it? The principle first, then the map. What is the principle? One border, guarding force. One border guarding force. Each frontier entrusted to a single force, so accountability has an address. The map: BSF, Pakistan, Bangladesh borders, and ITBP, the China border, ITBP, the China border, SSB, Nepal and Bhutan, Assam Rifles, Myanmar, and above them the army on the line of control and the line of actual control. The Navy for overall maritime security with the Coastal Guard for coastal waters. We are going to discuss in chapter number 10. Here, one caveat on the principle: in practice, responsibilities overlap. Army, state police, and central agencies all operate on these frontiers. OBO BGF, that is one border guarding force, fixes primary accountability, not exclusivity. And that comes to the institutional anchor part. The Department of Border Management within MHA created in 2004 on post-Kargil reform recommendations holds land and coastal borders, border policing, infrastructure, and the border area development program under one focused roof. So this is all about frontier numbers and who holds it. Comes to the frontier numbers, I am going to discuss. Bangladesh 4096 kilometers, China 3488 kilometers, Pakistan 3323, Nepal 1751, Myanmar 1643, Bhutan 699, Afghanistan under illegal occupation 106, and total land border 15,106 kilometer, 106.7 kilometers, according to MHA annual report 2024-2025. So we are moving to next scene, that is one country, five border philosophies. Here is the analytical frame that organizes everything. The annual report itself states it. What is that? The approach varies from border to border based on security perception and relationship. India runs five border philosophies simultaneously. First one, the fenced and dominated border for Pakistan. Infiltration and smuggling as the defining threats. Fencing and floodlighting dense outposts, hard vigilances here under the fenced Pakistan border. And then next philosophy, that is fenced but lived border. What is lived border or lived border? Bangladesh, the same infrastructure logic but through densely populated, cultivated riverine terrain where the fence must coexisting with daily life. So then disputed border. What is the disputed border here? China. No settled boundary. So the contest is infrastructure, roads, foot tracks, helipads, acclimatization centers, building the capacity to hold what is claimed. Then the open border with Nepal and Bhutan, free movement by treaty and history. The challenge is not crossing but misuse of crossing by territories, by terrorists and criminals moving through an open door. And the kinship border, Myanmar, regulated movement across communities, the line divides through the arrangement that governed it. The free movement regime, it itself under revision. The chapter number 12 carries the current position for this Myanmar regulated movement across divided communities. The FMR is under revision. So India does not have a border policy. It has five fenced, lived, disputed, open, and kinship borders. Each demand a different mix of barrier, technology, and consent. Border management is the art of matching the instrument to the frontier. So then we are moving to the next scene, that is infrastructure layer. Now the hardware with figures we are going to discuss. The umbrella, the border infrastructure management scheme approved by the cabinet committee on security in January 2022, a central sector umbrella of 13,020 crores for fences, floodlights, roads, and border and border outposts. Border outposts. So the build out. What is the build out here? India Bangladesh border 3,232 kilometer of 4,096 kilometer fenced, over 2,752 kilometers floodlit, 1,114 BSF border outposts, India Pakistan border about 2,068 of 2,116 sanctioned kilometer fenced, more or less 2,079 kilometer floodlit, 690 of 736 sanctioned BOPs completed. India Nepal 539 BOPs and 1,299.8 kilometers of border roads approved along an open frontier, and India Bhutan 195 BOPs. And the honest constraint list here is from the government's own report, which makes it safe to write your answer. Fencing on the Bangladesh border is slowed by riverine and low-lying stretches, habitations hard against the zero line, pending land acquisition, and protests by border populations. The gap between sanctioned and completed is not lethargy alone, it is geography and society also. Where the fence cannot stand, the plan itself states the barrier will be technological, which is the next scene we are going to discuss. That is scene number 5, the technology layer. CI, BMS, and the smart border. So these are the constraints. Riverine and low-lying stretches, habitations against a zero line, pending land acquisition, local protests where the fence cannot stand, the barrier turns technological. So we are moving to next one, CABMS and the smart border. The 2024 PYQ named BIM. The examiner's next word is technology. That is CABMS, the comprehensive integrated border management system. So the integration of manpower, sensors, networks, intelligence, and a command and control solutions to improve situational awareness at every level of the hierarchy and enable prompt response. This is called as border manage. See the comprehensive integrated border management system, according to the annual annual report of MHA. Annual report. What is the logic here? Classify the border by vulnerability, terrain, and crime pattern, and cover each segment with the appropriate technology solutions, like a smart border, differentiated like the frontier itself. What is the current state here? Honestly, pilot projects. What are the pilot projects? 2 5 kilometer stretches in Jammu on the Pakistan border, and 61-kilometer riverine project at Dubri, Assam on the Bangladesh border, precisely the terrain where fences fail. Then pilots not at the frontier wide standard. The caveat that earns marks, that is, technology complements domination. It does not replace it. Does not replace it. Sensors degrade in weather. Chapter 2 taught you about alerts without response forces or notifications, not security. The smart border is a force multiplier for the soldier, never a substitute. Never a substitute. So this is the logic here. Classify by vulnerability, terrain, and crime pattern, and pilot. What is the pilot here? Two 5-kilometer stretches in Jammu and 61-kilometer pilot Dhubri, Assam, where fences fail. Caveat. Technology. This is most important thing because technology complements domination. It does not replace it. Alerts without response forces are notifications, not security. That is the thing you have to remember all the time. Then we are moving to next scene, that is the drone frontier. The 2023 PYQ asked it directly. UAVs, unarmed aerial vehicles, ferrying arms, ammunition, and drugs across the border. The threat precisely is small drones crossing the western border, principally into Punjab, delivering narcotics, weapons, and cash. Cheap, expandable GPS guided, flying below the radar horizon, the frontier was built to watch. Connect it across your marathon. The payload is chapter 8's narco economy. The routes, the routes are the golden crescents, and the same platforms serve reconnaissance and potentially attack. So why it is hard? Small radar, cross section and low altitude, night operations, expandability, losing the drone losses nothing, and the defender's dilemma. Every kilometer must be watched while the attacker picks one. The counter UAS response as a layered kill chain, detect radar, radio frequency scanning, acoustic and optical sensors, identify, dis- distinguishing the hostile from the harmless, defeat, jamming and spoofing the link, and kinetic or capture, interception, and investigate, because every recovered drone is a case file into the network that sent it, which returns you to chapters 8 principle, that is target the network, not the courier. So the drone frontier here is why it is hard. Small UAV across the western border for narcotics, weapons, cash into the Punjab supplying. Why it is hard? Small radar, expendable, night operations, etc. And counter UAS systems, a layered kill chain is needed for detection, identify, and defeat and investigation. These are all under including the countermeasure layered system. So the drones has inverted border economies. The fence cost crores per kilometer. The breach now costs thousands per flight. The answer is a layered detect, identify, defeat grid joined to financial investigation of the networks behind the flights. Then we are moving to next scene, that is people layer. What is the people layer here? Development, trade, and the borderland. Border management's third dimension is neither steel nor sensor. It is the borderlands people. Three instruments. First and foremost thing is border area development. And read its evolution. We are going to do this. The border area development program, infrastructure and services within 0 to 10 kilometer of the border across 117 border districts. And now the vibrant villages program approved February 2023 for the northern border. 46 blocks, 19 districts, livelihoods, tourism, connectivity to including 4G to remote villages with the declared objective of reversing. Then out migration. Vibrant village program 2 followed in April 2025 with an outlay of 6,839 crore extending the model beyond the northern border. The strategic reading here is an uninhabited border village is a sensor, a witness, and a claim of sovereignty. An emptied one is vacuum. Development policy here is security policy. Second, regulated, facilitated crossing. The Land Ports Authority of India and its integrated checkpost, 15 operational from Atari in 2012 to the newest on the Bangladesh border, housing, customs, immigration, and security in one complex with radiation detection equipment at 8 ICPs guarding against nuclear and radiological smuggling. So the duality to name the same gate that facilitates trade is the choke point that screens threat. Border management is interdiction and commerce at once. And third one is the local population as the first line. The 2020 PYQ asked how to deny militants local support. The answer set you already won. Development that makes the state the better offer. Community engagement, the civic action logic of chapters 2 and 12. Grievance redressal before alienation hardens. And border village institutions that give residents a stake in the line that runs past their fields. And the illegal migration, the 2014 PYQ, one disciplined block here. Its drivers are economic distress and demographic pressure across the border. Its security costs are demographic tension, strain on resources, and criminal exploitation of the flows. Its answers are the fence and technology grid, identification regimes, diplomatic engagement with source countries, and now a statutory instrument to NOM, that is the Immigration and Foreigners Act 2025, which consolidates the older immigration statutes and builds a systemic record of every foreign national's entry duration and purpose. So these are both present debate both ways. The security case is that a state must know who is inside its borders. The counter case concerns the treatment of those fleeing persecution and the absence of a domestic refugee law to distinguish them from the other irregular entrants. So, say the both and close the block on the honesty that a purely coercive answer has never fully worked anywhere. So, this is all regarding development, people layer, development and migration. So then we are moving to next scene, that is honest paragraph and the way forward. What remains hard here? Terrain that defeats both fence and sensor. The sanctioned versus completed gap rooted in land rivers and local resistance. Technology pilots that must still scale. The drone race where offense is currently cheaper than defense. And the permanent tensions of the open borders, friendships door and securities gap in the same frame. The way forward here is four layers, one line each we are going to write. That is infrastructure, close the fencing and BOP gaps where geography permits, then technology, scale CABMS beyond pilots into the terrain fences cannot hold, and build the counter drone grid, people, vibrant inhabited, invested border villages, trade through ICPs, trust as chapter 2 defined it. Institutions, the Department of Border Management created in 2004 and reorganized since as the single point of accountability is the frontier has long needed. So effective border management stands on four legs: the fence, the sensor, the villager, and the institution. So India's frontier strategy is strongest where all four stand together. What are the four? The fence, the sensor, the villager, the institution. And breached wherever anyone stands alone. So this is the underlying thing. Then we are moving to next scene, that is PYQ corner. 2024 asked question. China Pakistan borders. Then 2023 UAV. Then 2022 2020 Myanmar. 16 border management. 14 illegal transporter. 13 internal security and border management. So what should be the probable? 6 questions here and 17 across this syllabus ahead in 13 years. The heaviest single cluster in the paper we are discussing till now. So what is the probable question for mains 2026? Border management in India must simultaneously secure fenced, open, disputed and kinship frontiers, discuss how infrastructure, technology and border area development are being combined to meet these differentiated challenges. So, what should we have to write an answer? The four-layer frame. First one, open the frontier scale and the OBOBGF force map. Then frame it five border philosophies, the differentiated frontier insight, because every border needs specialized things, not uniformly. Then present infrastructure and technology with both anchors like BIM fencing figures with honest constraints. Then CIBMS pilots like Jammu to 5 kilometer stretch, then etc. The CIBMS pilots with the complement not replace caveat. Then add the threat evaluation, the drone kill chain answer, network to narco financing. Then close the people layer, BADP to vibrant villages, ICP duality, borderland trust, and the four legs formation. So this is the chapter number 9. 50,000 kilometers of line held by fence, sensor, villager, and institution together. This is the way you have to write an answer for this particular probable question. So then we are moving to next chapter, that is chapter number 10, maritime and coastal security. What is maritime and what is coastal security? We are going to discuss in this chapter comprehensively. The question is UPSC refuses to retire. What is that question? Look at the head's recent record 2022 question, Maritime Security Challenges, and the organizational, technical, and procedural initiatives. This question asked in 2022. Then 2025 question, why maritime security is vital to India's sea trade, challenges, and the way forward. Two direct questions in 3 years, 2022 and 25. For a head that went unasked between 2014 and 2022. So between 2014 and 22, they asked nothing, single question. But in 2022 asked one question and 2025 asked another question. That is a sharp change of tempo. And it tells you the examiner considers this theater underprepared by candidates and expanding its importance. So we do not skip this chapter because 2025 asked it. We master it because the examiner keeps returning. And because the 7,516 kilometer coastline is the one frontier where a single failure one November night in 2008 rewrote the entire architecture. So what is the scene number 2 we are discussing here? Why the sea is vital? Why the sea is vital? The 2025 questions skeleton here is, why is maritime security vital? Five stakes states them as stakes, not facts. Those are, what are the stakes? Trade, energy, data, resources, and territory. These five stakes are vital, vital. So comes to the trade part. Most of India's merchandise trade by volume moves by sea, simply moves by sea. The economy breathes through its ports only, majorly. Comes to energy part. Crude and gas imports arrive across sea lanes that pass through choke points. India does not control energy security, is sea lane security. Data. The undersea cables of chapter 6, we discussed the digital economy's physical spine. Land on the same coast, concentrated around Mumbai. Comes to resources part, a vast exclusive economic zone, fisheries, energy, minerals, and the according to budget 2026-2017 push for fishing beyond territorial waters into the EEZ and high seas, which extends the citizens' presence and therefore the state's responsibility seaward. And comes to territory. Island chains, Andaman and Nicobar, Lakshadweep, that are simultaneously the most exposed and the most strategically placed assets India's own. For India, the sea is not a boundary but a bloodstream. Trade, energy, data, and food all move through it. Maritime security is therefore not a naval subject. It is the protection of the economy's circulatory system. The threat spectrum. We are going to discuss map map the threats from the share outward. Seaborne terrorism, the 26 by 11 template. What are the six threats here? Seaborne terrorism, smuggling and narcotics, arms and human trafficking, piracy, IUU fishing, and grey zones. Comes to the seaborne terrorism, the 26 by 11 template. Attackers arriving by sea, exploiting the gap between naval patrol and beach policing. Everything in this chapter's architecture descends from that night. Then, then smuggling and narcotics. Chapter 8's economy arriving by trawler and the maritime routes as the volume channel that land interdiction pushes traffic toward arms and human trafficking along the same roads. Then comes to piracy part. The 2014 PYQ noted that IMO shifting the piracy high risk area eastward in 2012 from 65 degrees east to 78 degrees east, which brought the risk zone toward India's western seaboard. Expanded escort and patrol burdens, raised shipping and insurance costs, and pulled the Navy into sustained anti-piracy deployment. So comes to the exam point here is piracy far away become India's problem. The moment the risk line moves and the premiums rise. Then illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, resource theft, a sovereignty probe in civilian clothing, and the grey zone layer, hybrid pressures at sea, survey vessels, maritime militia behavior, and surveillance of critical assets, the chapter 4th playbook afloat. So these are the these are all the threats in the threat spectrum from shore out water. So then we are moving to next scene, that is the coastal architecture. Three tiers from the beach outward. What is the structure? According to the annual report, multi-stakeholder construct. It has a multi-stakeholder construct. What is the tier 1 here? Coastal waters. The coastal police of 9 coastal states and 4 union territories, functionally responsible for shallow waters close to the coast. This is the first structure in the coastal waters, that are the shallow waters. Then tier 2, territorial waters. The Indian Coast Guard designated as the authority for coastal security in India's territorial waters, including the areas patrolled by coastal police. This is the second one, tier 2. Then Tier 3 overall maritime security. The Indian Navy responsible for the total maritime domain, including coastal and offshore security. Beach to blue water, three focuses, one continuum. Three focuses, one continuum. The capacity behind the Tier 1, the coastal security scheme. Phase 1, 73 coastal police stations, 97 checkposts, 204 interceptor boats and supporting infrastructure. Then phase 2, 131 more coastal police stations, 37 jetties, 6 marine operational centers. Then the National Academy of Coastal Policing at Devbhoomi Dwaraka, 441 crore over half completed, targeted to be fully functional by early 2027. The first dedicated school for marine policemen. These are all under the multi-stakeholder construct from beach to blue water, one continuum. Then we are moving to discussion. Next scene, that is organizational technical procedural. The 2022 questions frame exact this thing. This initiatives three baskets. First and foremost is organizational, technical, procedural. Organizational front. The three-tier construct you just built, the Department of Border Management. Chapter 9's institutional umbrella, holding coastal security within its mandate. The Information Management Analysis Center, that is IMAC, the Joint Navy Coast Guard hub, fusing the maritime picture into common awareness, and the continuing move toward a dedicated port security architecture, a Bureau of Port Security proposed as the sector's security address. One line as an example. Then comes to technical part. The coastal radar surveillance chain feeding IMA's common operating picture, vessel tracking and identification regimes for the fishing fleet, because 26 by 11's lesson was that the sea's haystack must be indexed before the needle can be found. And the coastal digital mapping portal developed with BISAGN, BISAC N mapping every coastal security asset, every security coastal asset digitally, like coastal digital mapping portal. Then comes to procedural part. The common communication plan, that is Complan 2022, one communication protocol across every coastal stakeholder with equipment procurement underwater through BSF, standard operating procedures revalidated through exercises, which is the next scene, and giant patrolling that runs three forces into one practice. That is scene number 6, that is exercises and the fisherman rehearsal and ice. Security architecture is only as good as its rehearsals. The exercise tempo. Sagar Kavach, the biannual coastal security exercises 269 conducted till April 2025. Sajag, a monthly one-day drill, except monsoon. 469 conducted giant coastal patrolling between the Coast Guard and State Coastal Police since August 2020. Thousands of personnel trained and embarked at sea. And the human sensor network, community interaction programs, 15,688 conducted, engaging the fishing community as in the annual report's own phrase. The eyes and ears of coastal security, that is community fishermen. Eyes and ears. Understand why the fisherman matters doctrinally. Millions of fishing craft cannot all be policed, but the community that knows every boat, every route, and every stranger on the water is a surveillance network. No radar chain can match this. If and only if the state has earned its cooperation, the trust doctrine of chapter 219 now standing on a beach. So coastal security is rehearsed into existence. 269 Sagar Kavach exercises, monthly sajag drills, giant patrols, giant patrols, and completed by the fishermen whose eyes cover what no sensor can. So the outward layer is Navy, region, and the ocean of cooperation. Beyond the territorial waters, the frame widens. What is the Navy's standing rules? Sea lane protection and presence, sustained anti-piracy deployment, maritime domain awareness across the Indian Ocean, and rapid response from hijackings to humanitarian crisis. And one doctrinal instrument worth naming here, because most candidates will not, that is the Joint Doctrine of Amphibious Operations, released by the Chief of Defense Staff in September 2024 and declassified in August 2025, integrating maritime, air, and land forces for Operation Ashore, according to Ministry of Defense Annual Report 2024-2025. So this is cite it alongside Chapter 4 Cyberspace Doctrine as evidence that India's giant doctrinal architecture is being written domain by domain. So the cooperate instrument. What is the cooperative instrument here? The Information Fusion Center, Indian Ocean region, hosting international liaison officers, sharing wide shipping and threat information across partner navies, because an ocean's awareness cannot be built by one country's radars. And the what is the doctrine umbrella? Doctrinal umbrella, India's declared vision of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region is called Sagar, now complemented by the broader Mahasagar formulation. Security as a shared regional good with India as first responder and preferred partner. One sentence of this in a mains answer links you GS3 security material to GS2 international relations. A cross paper dividend. So this is this scene, and scene number 5, that is IMAC, IFS, IFC, IOR, Sagar Mahasagar are sourced outside the MHA annual report confirm. The EEZ closing thought. As the budget pushes Indian fishing into the EEZ and high seas, the security perimeter must follow the citizen. EEZ governance, surveillance, and fisheries protection are the next expansion of this chapter map. So, Navy region doctrine for this thing, sea lane protection, giant doctrine, Sagar Mahasagar, and budget 2026-2027 Maritime Development Fund 1000 crores. So, what remains unfinished? So the honest paragraph and the way forward is, that is what remains unfinished. Capacity unevenness across coastal states. Capacity unevenness, not even capacity across all coastal states. The scheme built stations, staffing and sea time vary. The multiplicity problem. Many agencies on one coastal line still means coordination is a daily achievement, not a settled fact. Small craft opacity, lacks of fishing vessel, and identification regimes that must reach every last hull to mean anything. Port and hinterland security. The container is the sea's Trojan horse, and the grey zone gap. Survey ships and militia behavior sit below thresholds our response are built for. That is chapter number 5's problem offshore. One financing signal before the way forward, that is budget 2026-2027 creates a maritime development fund with 1000 crores alongside a national shipbuilding mission. This is as evidence the maritime capacity is being treated as a strategic infrastructure, not merely commercial. The way forward here is in one integrated sweep, that is complete the coastal policing build out, academy stations, cruise at sea, push the technical net to full coverage, radar chain tracking down to the smallest craft, harden ports and containers as critical infrastructure. Chapter 6 is logic dark side. So deepen the fishermen partnership, welfare and security as one conversation, and extend awareness outward. EEZ patrol, regional fusion, cooperative security, so the perimeter sits as far from the beach as possible. So India's maritime security has evolved from a post 26 by 11 coastal patch into a layered continuum: beach police, coastal guard, coast guard, navy, regional fusion. But the continuum is only as strong as its thinnest layer, and that layer is still the crowded, anonymous waters closest to shore. So, what is unfinished here and way forward? Capacity unevenness, small craft opacity, complete the build out, push the technical net, deepen the fisherman partnership. These are all things is comes under way forward for unfinished things. So India's maritime security has evolved from post 26 by 11 coastal patch into a layered continuum. But the continuum is only as strong as its thinnest layer, and that layer is still crowded and anonymous waters closest to shore. This thing I am particularly slided because this will be useful in your answer. So then we are moving to next scene, that is PYQ corner. Then 2025 question asked regarding maritime security and sea trade. Then 2022 organizational technical procedural initiatives. Then IMO piracy line, etc. These three questions asked. So 2014 question I am repeating. I'm reading. In 2012, the longitudinal marking of high risk areas of for piracy moved from 65 degrees east to 78 degrees east in the Arabian Sea by the International Maritime Organization. What impact this have on India's maritime security? This question. The 2014, the an 8-year silence. The 2014, the 8 years silence. Then 2022, after 2014, asked UPSC. Then 8 years of silence, asked in 2022, and then again asked in 2025, within 2 years of gap, like two exams, like 3 years. So this head has moved from occasional to active, which is exactly when a paper starts producing variants. The 2026 variant most likely shifts seaward, that is EEZ governance, gray zone pressure, or regional maritime cooperation. So what is the probable question for mains 2026? Here is this thing. India's maritime security architecture, rebuilt after 26 by 11, now faces challenges that extended from crowded coastal waters to grey zone pressures in the wider Indian Ocean. Examine the layered response and suggest the way forward. So this is simple thing, that is beach to blue water frame. So first and foremost, what you have to do is establish the stakes, like trade, energy, data, resources, territory, or the blood streamline. Then move to map the threat spectrum from seaborne terror to grey zone, with the piracy longitude point as the 2014 callback. Then build the three-tier architecture of CSS anchors. Then fill the 2002 triad, that is organizational, 2022 triad, that is organizational, technical, procedural. Then moving to prove the rehearsal, that is Sagar Kavach, Sajag, joint patrols, and the fisherman as the human sensor and the trust doctrine. Then move to widen outward, that is Navy, IFC, IOR, Sagar to Mahasagar, EEZ expansion. Then closing on the thinnest layer with honesty. So this is the chapter 10. The land frontier of chapter 9 has fence. This one has a fisherman, a radar chain, and a navy, and needs all three. This is coastal security and etc. Then we are moving to chapter number 11, that is left wing extremism from decline to durable peace. So, what is left wing extremism and why from decline to durable peace? The question after the victory. In Mains 2025, UPSC asked you to directly, the government has stated that left wing extremism will be eliminated by 2026. What is left wing extremism? How far people affected? What has the government done? We are going to discuss. Understand what that question was. It was the announcement question, and the announcement has since been made good. And the government's own assessment that the 31st March 2026 target was met, and the Ministry of Home Affairs has declared the country free of Naxal violence. Naxal violence. So the 2026 paper cannot ask the announcement question again. It will ask the sequel, and the government has helpfully supplied the sequel's vocabulary. What is that vocabulary? Hold the two numbers that define it. In 2014, 126 districts were affected. By 2026, 2 and the most affected category, 35 districts at its peak, stands 0. Affected districts 2, most affected category 0, from 35 to 0, from 126 to 2, according to PAB Naxal Free India on June 19th PAB. Then that is the whole chapter. Territorial control has been achieved. What converts a security victory into durable peace? We will master the decline, but we will prepare above all for the day after, because the day after is now. So, what left wing extremism is and why it took root? What is the foundation? The foundation, quickly but precisely, we are going to discuss. Left wing extremism is an armed insurgency guided by Maoist ideology seeking to overthrow the Indian state through protracted people's war, historically spread across a red corridor through central and eastern India's tribal and forest belts. The CPI Maoist is its most potent organization, which banned under UAPA with all its formations and front organizations. Who is affected with this? Precisely the citizens the constitution promised to protect most. Tribal communities and forest dwellers caught between extremist violence and state operations, losing schools, roads, markets, health access, and above all, losing decades of development. And why did it take root? Because UPSC's 2020 and 2022 questions demand determinants, carry them as a chain, land alienation and displacement, mining and industrial projects in tribal belts, weak implementation of fifth schedule and PESA, forest rights, insecurity, poverty, unemployment, absent administration, and the exploitation of these grievances by an ideology offering guns as governance. So you have to hold that power, hold that word, that is implementation. The 2013 PYQ asked about the impact of non-implementation of fifth schedule and the growth of left-wing extremism. The whole chapter will return to it, because what caused the problem is also what must consolidate the peace. So we are moving to the chapter scene number 3, that is decline in numbers. Now the transformation. The figures are your spine. Use one series throughout that. The government's own running from peak to the declaration. Do not mix it with older baselines. The examiner will not, and a mixed series is how good answers last marks. From peak to declaration. The peak year was 2010, 1936 in incidents and 1005 fatalities. The decade 2004 to 2014 recorded 17,542 incidents. 1913 security forces deaths and 5,019 civilian deaths. From 2014 to 2025, incidents fell from 870 to 234, fatalities from 310 to 100. Affected districts 126 in 2014, 2 in 2026. Districts in most affected category 35, at peak 0 now. Police stations reporting Naxal incident 333 down to 16. So read the shape of that. The violence curve falls steadily. That is what I am trying to say is with this data. So the violence curve falls steadily. The geography curve collapses, and insurgency does not end when the last shot is fired. It ends when there is nowhere left for it to be. And the district count is honest measure of that. One sentence carries the whole scene into an answer. What is that? A movement that state itself called its gravest internal security challenge in 2009 was declared over on 31st March 2026, and the interval was 12 years, not 12 months. So this is the scene number 3, that is decline in numbers. So next we are moving to scene number 4, that is why it declined. The second, the security half. The exam wants mechanisms, not adjectives. Give the security half as 7 mechanisms. First one, fill the vacuum, intelligence grid, capacity transfer, financial choking, leadership attrition, counter IED capability, interstate coordination. First and foremost is filling the security vacuum. Accelerated opening of camps and forward operating bases, converting liberated zones into administrated ones. The Grid India 597 fortified police stations built against just 66 before 2014. 4,408 new CAPF camps in the last 7 years, 68 night landing helipads, 400 bullet and blast proof vehicles. Second one, the intelligence grid. Multi agency center at the center, state MAC, that is multi agency centers below, strengthened state intelligence branches, and joint command and control centers at Jagdalpur and Gaya. Real time interstate fused intelligence, joint command and control centers at Jagdalpur and Gaya. Real time interstate fused intelligence. And third one is capacity transfer to states, security related expenditure reimbursement, 325 crore in 2024-2025 alone. 67 India Reserve and Special India Reserve Battalion sanctioned, 250 fortified police stations funded at 2.5 crore each, 210 completed. A fourth one is financial choking of the Maoist economy, extortion, levies, and supply networks disrupted, with a dedicated NIA vertical of left wing extremism cases. And figures to be cited here: NIA seizures of over 40 crore, ED attachments 12 crore, further 40 crore confiscated by state agencies, 112 NIA cases with 100 charge sheet of uh, as of June 2026. So here you have to note the claim precisely. These are seizures and charge sheets, which is investigation reach, investigative reach, not a conviction rate. Conviction rate is in financing cases, not. Fifth one, leadership attrition under the declared trace target neutralize doctrine. Delivered through named operations, you should be able to cite, that is Operation Black Forest in at Karreguttalu Hill, Octopus Double Bull, which left Gamla, Lohardaga, and Latehar free of Naxal presence, Thunderstorm, Beamberg, and Chakrabanda. Naming one operation is worth more than adjective. It shows you read past the headline. The sixth one is counter IED capacity. Because IEDs cause the majority of force casualties, a dedicated SOP and sustained counter IED capacity building. Then seven, interstate coordination across the border districts through which cadres historically escaped. These are all the things from security half taken by taken by the government. And comes to the development part, development saturation, that is, and this is the development of first is security hub, And the second one is development saturation. 2014 to 2026, roads 12,249 kilometers constructed since 2014. Projects totaling 17,319 kilometer approved at 20,557 crore. Then comes to telecom, over 9,600 mobile towers established. 96% of villages in the most affected areas now have mobile connectivity. Then financial inclusion, April 2015 to March 2026, 1804 bank branches, 1321 ATMs, 74,720 banking correspondents, 6,025 post offices. Then comes to education and skills. 259 Ekalavya model residential schools sanctioned, 179 developed, 46 ITIs, and 49 skill development centers, nearly 800 crore invested. Skill training delivered to over 90,000 youth and women. Then civic action, works worth 212 crore plus 50.45 crore under the media plan scheme. And from the forest rights record, over 21 lakh title deeds distributed under the Forest Rights Act across the left wing extremism affected states. So speak three of these, leave the rest on screen. We are going to discuss in this particular decline of the development half. And the counter propaganda front, the tribal youth exchange program, 35,680 tribal youth since 2006, taking young people of conflict geography to see the India's Maoists tell them does not exist. So the development half of the left-wing extremism strategy is measurable. 12,000 kilometers of road, 8,000 towers, 21 lakh forest rights titles, 255 tribal schools. The state's answers to guns as governance has been governance itself delivered at saturation. So this is the second half. Then we are moving to case study, that is Bastar, scene number 5A. This is one worked example we are going to carry, because a case study converts a list into an argument. Bastar is one the government itself uses, and it is one of the examiner will recognize. The turning point was institutional, not tactical. In 2017, the Bastariya battalion was raised. 1143 personnel, of whom around 400 were local youth from Bijapur, Sukma, and Dantewada. Local recruitment did three things at once. It improved intelligence, it built trust between forces and tribal communities, and it made the security presence look like the population it was protecting. And then the development followed the security in that order. More than 320 3,240 kilometers of roads across Bastar, Bijapur, Dantewada, Sukma, Narayanpur, Kanker, and Kondagaon, 889 mobile towers, a rehabilitation plan around 3,000 surrendered cadres with an initial 20 crore of skill development, education, and livelihoods. And then the conversion of the security grid itself. In May 2026, the Shahid Veer Gunda Dur Seva Dera initiative began, turning around 70 CAPF camps into service centers, delivering government schemes, healthcare, banking, agriculture support, and skill development from the same buildings that once held only troops. So the last to move is the whole chapter is one image, that is the camp does not withdraw and leave a vacuum. It changes function. Write that sentence and you have answered that. The day after question before it is asked. Alongside it, the cultural layer, Bastar Pandam and the Bastar Olympics, which matter analytically, not decoratively. Participation in a shared public life is what an insurgency spent 40 years preventing. So this is all the things as case study. Then we are moving to one framework, two vocabularies. Bind the two halves with an official framework. What is that official framework? The National Policy and Action Plan to address left wing extremism, adopted in 2015, rests on a declared triad, that is security, development, ensuring rights and entitlement of local communities. And the government's public vocabulary express the same triad, that is Vishwas trust, rebuilt through state presence, coordination, and structured surrender. And second one is Nirman, connectivity, governance, presence, and durable economic opportunity. Then Jan Kalyan, that is welfare delivery, dignity, and cultural inclusion. The declaration itself is organized around these three pillars. So using them is not decoration, it is following the government's own architecture. That is Vishwas, Nirman, Jan Kalyan. And note the sequence claim the government makes because it is examinable. Security created space for development. Development deepened trust. Trust accelerated welfare. Not a sequence of stages, an interlocking chain. Use either formulation, but notice what the third pillar concedes. Rights and entitlements are named as a pillar because their denial was a cause. So security answers the gun, development answers the grievance, rights answers the alienation. Remember also the constitutional frame. The annual report itself states police and public order are state subjects. The center supplements state capacity. One line of federalism ends quite marks in this chapter. So we are moving the scene number 7, that is the honest paragraph. Why? Declining is not same as over. Here is where average answers and yours continues. Territorial contraction is not cause elimination. Hold 5 continuing concerns. That is first one, the structural causes persist wherever implementation lacks, like land alienation, mining linked displacement, uneven implementation of PESA and the Forest Rights Act, weak access to justice, youth unemployment, local corruption, siphoning the very development meant to heal. And the second one, residual capacity. Armored cadres in Bastar Corps, interstate movement along borders and attempts so far unsuccessful. To expand it, new areas and urban or digital networks. And third one is the state's own admission in the annual report. Maoists deliberately target schools, roads, railways, health and telecom infrastructure. They resist the remediation of root causes because development is their strategical defeat. Then fourth one, 2024 data's warning label. Security force casualties ticked up during core area operations. The last phase of an insurgency is not the safest phase. The fifth one is the day after risk, and note that has stopped being hypothetical. Phased withdrawal from farmer strongholds has begun. If camps convert leave before institutions arrive, the vacuum that bred the movement returns. The state's own answer to this, the camp to service center conversion of scene 5A, which is an answer but an untested one. So so 5 continuing concerns here are first and foremost structural causes, residual capacity, Maoist target, 2024 force casualties, core area operations, and phased withdrawal has begun the day after risk is real. So the geographical contraction of left-wing extremism is a security achievement. The elimination of its underlying causes is a governance project, and the second does not automatically follow from the first. So, what is the day after converting victory into durable peace? The sequel question and answered here. The structure, the post left wing extremism strategy as a single transition from area domination to institutional consolidation, constitutional consolidation, full and honest implementation of the fifth schedule PESA, and the Forest Rights Act empowered Gram Sabha speed settlement of land and forest claims, closing at the last circle, the 2013 PYQ opened. And then administrative consolidation, sustained civilian presence after camps convert or withdraw, schools, clinics, courts, and grievance redressal where only the camp once stood, local recruitment into administration and police, so the state was a familiar face. Then economic consolidation, rehabilitation of surrendered cadres, tried to real livelihoods and the left-wing extremism. Surrender terms are both citing precisely because they differ from the Northeast policy of Chapter 12. An immediate grant of 5 lakh for higher ranked cadres, 2.5 lakh for others, a monthly stipend 10,000 for 36 months, and a 50,000 incentives doubled for group surrenders. 2,337 cadres surrendered in 2025, 3,927 between 2024 and March 2026. Then community controlled development with genuine consultation and protection of development funds from the contractor to official nexus. Then security consolidation, calibrated, not abrupt drawdown, preventing the criminalization of farmer networks into extortion and organized crime and vigilance against ideological revival in new geographies or digital form. So one sentence to the close are the argument. The red corridor was emptied by security forces. It will stay empty only if the constitution moves on. So four types of consolidation: constitutional, administrative, economic, and security. With these only, it will be peace. Otherwise, it will be revival. So we are moving to the geographical contraction of left wing extremism is security achievement. The elimination of its underlying causes a governance project, and the second does not automatically follow the first. This is the left wing extremism's ammunition means. Then we are moving to scene number 9 PYQ corner. 2025 question. Left wing by 2026, what it is, who affected, what was done. Then 2022, Naxalism a developmental issue. 2020 determines left wing extremism. Then downward trend 2018. Large industry display tribals 2015. Fifth schedule non-implementation and left wing extremism. So these questions asked. So then we are moving to the probable question. And note that UPSC has run this move before 2018. It asked about a downward trend. That was not yet an ending. The 2026 version asks about an ending that is not at a peace. So probable question for mains is: the territorial contraction of left-wing extremism represents a major security achievement, but not necessarily the elimination of its underlying causes. Discuss the strategy needed to convert security gains into durable peace. So we have to write an answer to the victory to peace frame. First one, establish the decline with one series from 870 to 234 incidents, fatalities, 2014 to 25 districts most affected. How reduced this thing? Then explain it as two halves. First one, 7 security mechanisms, then development saturation with figures. Then name the framework like security to development to rights, that is equal to Vishwas Nirman Jan Kalyan. Then concede honestly. 5 reasons declining is not over. Those are concerns, structural, etc. etc. And then answer the sequel. Area domination then leads to institutional consolidation with the fifth schedule. Then PESA, Forest, Forest Rights Act, and a circle closed with this. So in this way, you have to write an answer. So this is the thing regarding left wing extremism. So this is the chapter 11. The war has been declared won. Your answer is about to peace, which nobody has declared yet. Remaining chapters we are going to discuss in the next class, in the next video.